Hi, it's Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Welcome to the A.D.K channel, and today we're going to be doing a premiere review of the new video by Before the Sirens. We have Al, lead singer, vocalist extraordinaire, and guitarist for the band.
That's a bit too much. Okay.
We're going to actually answer some questions about the video. I, of course, had the pleasure of shooting the video, and it was a pleasure. Honest, it was.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. You can say it too many times. It starts to sound like I've got all your leg hair under your desk or something.
Let go. Yeah. So obviously, I can talk a little bit about that. But of course, for Andy and Kirk, we've heard the single because we did the album or EP. Is it EP review?
Yeah.
A week or so ago. Gave our thoughts on that particular one, and of course, now we're ready to do the video. So I reckon let's go straight into the video now, and then we'll throw it over to you guys for some feedback. There we go. That is Before the Sirens and Low. Of course, it's a bit different because this can't be like the normal reaction video where we can just kind of do a kind of standard glaze over the top sort of thing. I'm going to throw it to Andy on your initial thoughts of this, first of all.
As a video, yeah, it's a really, really good piece of film work. It's really nice to sort of pick out some historical landmarks, not landmarks, but, you know, local locations, should I say. I saw the Club 85 bar, the Red Line, and Steve's old house. Really nice. I really like the way the performance sections were lit, particularly when it's the shot of the drummer, the sort of the light gleams. You know, the way you've done that is really good. The guy, sort of the protagonist, the sort of the central character, I think he played his part really well. It's a really good storyline, reflecting a pretty shitty day for this poor chap, you know. So what was I going to say? Again, the sort of the shots later on where the band are sort of in a sort of semicircle away, facing away from the drummer. That was quite unusual as well. I like that as well, and it really suited the song. You know, the lyrical content of the song. I think really, really good job. Enjoyed it a lot. I'm looking forward to watching it again. Yeah, good job, Dave. Really good. And well done to Alun and the boys for their parts as well. I thought that was excellent.
What about yourself, Kirk?
So yeah, I'll give an analysis of the video before we move on to asking Alun about the composition of the song and some of the techniques used in there. So when it started, I was thinking, oh shit, is this going to be like Frantic by Metallica, you know, from Saint Anger? I know it's been used so many times where you have drinking the bottles and then it speeds the day up, doesn't it? Where you speed the tape up to show how hectic it's been. But what I really liked, you captured that late 90s, early 2000s lighting that bands on Relapse Records used to use. Even that hardcore band from New York, Candiria. It's like similar to that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when it shows the band in a circle, you could imagine that being New Roses or someone like that on Relapse. So that was quite a good contrast. And then you see the great, shall we say, mundane lower middle class town of Stevenage, which I'm proud to live in, I must say, even though I'm not originally from there. So I like how you, when I saw the Holiday Inn, I knew exactly which car park that was at the end, where he's contemplating jumping off. And I've got to say, I knew that he wasn't going to jump off. That's a good thing. I think he deliberately made sure there was ambiguity there. He wasn't going to do that. So am I right in thinking, Alun, I'm going to throw over the first question to you. This, when I've read through these lyrics, I'm seeing this as somebody who's enduring the difficult part of recovering from being possibly a functioning alcoholic, because there's some interesting wordplay in there where he stopped drinking but he still feels as if he's drunk. Is it something like that he says? Can you just elaborate on that for me?
It's going to be a bit like sort of, I don't know, social therapy, if you want to call it that, because while I've spoken to obviously to friends, the band, family, etc., extensively about this, but I've never really kind of aired this publicly because I don't think it's suitable, and I'm certainly not the type of person to throw it all over social media. So this song was written around September last year, and in early September, I came to the fairly stark realization that is exactly what I was, Kirk. I was a functional alcoholic. I was able to complete my my work, do my work, and most of the time feed the family and do all the things I needed to, but my release, if you will, I told myself it was so I could relax, and it had gotten substantially worse throughout COVID. My wife was quite gravely unwell for like 3 months or something, so it became like a bit of a comfort blanket. But in the September, I realised that I had a problem, frankly, and but that's not the reason that Low was written, bizarrely, because, and I mean this, I felt worse when I gave up. I get that first week, 2 weeks, I had vivid nightmares. I had if we're being honest about it, it's like withdrawal, wasn't it? So it was, you know, I felt drained constantly. I had headaches. It was all sorts. So Low really was written from the point of view that I knew I'd done the right thing, but it felt like hell. And I was wrestling with I'm very much the kind of person that once I've decided to do something, I do it, and it's done with. So I was never in any danger of kind of relapsing, if you will, like going back to drinking or whatever. But I really struggled with the idea that, you know, usually if you start a diet or something, you just feel better. Like you know what you're doing is good for your body and it feels better and you start to see the benefits. But it's not like that if you've drank consistently heavily for as long as I did. So so the first verse of that song, as you say, lyrically is all about drinking far too much. Drowning but still drinking anyway is a line in there.
That's the line.
But the second verse is about still drinking but the bottles run dry. So you may have spotted that's alcohol free. So I was kind of still the idea being that I'm like recovering from it but still feel absolutely awful. And that's the end, the sort of outro chorus, if you will, is I'm not drowning but it hurts like hell. And that was the whole point behind that song.
Yeah, what was the whose idea was it to have him as a sprawling corpse, you know, at the scene at the end where you play the breakdown? Was there any disagreement on that between you and Dave, whether you should have his body on the floor passed out while you're thrashing away playing?
No. So that was always the plan. We brought this concept to Dave, and you can help me out with this, Dave, because I know you and I were talking about it for several months. We kind of brought the concept to Dave. Actually, Dave and I had some fairly frank and honest conversations around exactly what I just was explaining around the sort of the hole you can find yourself in around alcohol and things like that. And I suppose my only brief to Dave was that I wanted it to feel lonely. I didn't want it to turn into a smack my bitch up video where, you know, it seems like one big party and, oh, this sounds like a great idea. No, it needed to feel lonely and quite sad, frankly. But when we were trying to put like the beginning, middle, end, so, you know, like waking up in the morning, terrible day, and then how it was going to end, we wanted it to be, we always said that we wanted the band to come in towards that end section, from that end section. But we were also aware that there would have to be a tie-in. We couldn't just be the dark place that he'd fallen to. There had to be some kind of tie-in to the story. And Dave, I think you suggested he be like the dead guy on the floor, so to speak, in the background. And I loved that. I thought, yeah, that sounds, it's really strong, it's really powerful. Because of the way the lighting is, it's almost like an Easter egg. You either see it or you don't. So the fact that he's there isn't really, really strongly referenced, intentionally so. But that's, that was the real tie-in to the story, if you will, to go with the idea that he'd fallen to a dark place, but not necessarily hit the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I remember sort of meeting up with the guys. It would have been at Club 85. We met up just before, during like the pre-sound checking era of your heat, I think it was.
Yeah.
And you guys positioned it to me, and it was quite interesting because when you explained it to me, I was lucky enough because I gave up drinking 3 years ago from exactly the same scenario, hitting that wall and realizing I've been drinking for 22 years solidly and destroying my life and realizing I needed a spec change. So I completely understood where Al was and the story that needed to be told. And I guess when we then started talking to some of the other guys in the band, and they were kind of doing bits around, oh yeah, we want to see him getting drunk. And I was like, that's not what the story's about. It's not about a drunk. It's someone who's got an alcohol problem, and they're very, very different things.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to see him slurring and slamming back shots, and because then you're not going to have any sympathy for this guy. You need to know this guy's got a problem. And I think initially we were still trying to work out how to. I think the other main brief I got from the guys was, it's a fast-paced song, So doing long, drawn-out shots isn't going to work. So we need to keep with the pace, and that was one of the briefs I had to take away. And I remember sitting down and trying to work out how we're going to tell a story. And I think I came back to Al and sort of said it'd be good if we did like a day in the life concept, rather than it being like over a period of weeks, months, showing this journey. If we could do like the final day. And the whole idea of jumping off was a case of we knew we wanted to break down at the end and we wanted to go into that. And the idea being was that we wanted the audience to think that, yes, he's killed himself. And that's why, and he's in this place, he's on the floor, the guys are surrounding him. There was even talk about whether they're facing inwards or facing outwards. We had the whole debates around that, but we knew it was going to be in a circle. We knew it was going to be in a spotlight. And the whole idea was that was meant to be, he runs to the barrier, he grabs it, and he sees his death, and that's the thing that makes him go, actually stop. And that's why you suddenly see a little reversal at the end and him re-grabbing the barrier and putting the drink down, and that's his awakening call. And that was kind of the thing, and that was why Al, when we were doing, there was actually some other shots that we did at the end, and Al was very clear. He was like, I want to fade out on that bottle to make it really powerful about it's giving up that bottle. That was the thing that we're trying to focus on here. And yeah, it was really good. I mean, the actors we had did great jobs. It's just funny when we met Matt, the actor who played the role, and the first thing I was like, hi, Matt. Yeah, I'm David. Get upstairs and get into bed, mate. Come on. And that's the first conversation I had.
By the way, Al, you're not invited, was your next sentence.
Yeah, Al, you're not invited. It's just me and Matt. Come on, get your kit off, get into bed, mate. I'm going to film you.
Yeah.
How did you meet him? Did you just go on a casting website?
No. Matt is a good friend of ours. He comes to a lot of our shows. He just so happened to be sat around the table when we were talking about the concept for the video, and semi tongue-in-cheek I said to him, do you fancy it? He was like, yeah, I'll give it a go. And it's not an irony, by coincidence, Matt also had his struggles with alcohol and also gave up. So when we came to shoot all this, he and I did a lot of kind of, I wouldn't call it prep, it was more chat, like in the car, about, he would ask me, is it all right if I draw on this, or is it, am I okay like to do this? And I said, look, man, whatever you feel is right. And I think that the fact that he wasn't trying to portray anything that he isn't, and it was honest, really comes across. He seemed to understand every kind of brief point we gave him. Charlene, the lady who was his wife in the home scenes, she's an actor. She's been in short films and bits and pieces and all sorts. So, but she's also Adam's wife. So that was quite an easy one to kind of fit, really. But she did great as well. She understood very clearly what we were after, and she delivered that really, really well. But we were very lucky. We were.
I have to be honest, her shouting at Matt was so genuine. I was like,
yeah,
Adam must get in so much shit at home. I swear to God.
Did you hear him when we actually went for it? Did you hear him when we were in the other room?
No.
We were in the next room when that was all going on, and he physically winced when she started. And I said to him, did you just get triggered? And he was like, oh, I felt like I was at home for a second.
Just get triggered. Can I ask a question musically? Who's one criticism I have of that, I think that you actually blunted the force of the breakdown by putting that ellipsis in there. It was like an audio ellipsis, wasn't it? It's like to be continued. And then it came in. Andy, you might disagree with me on that. What did you think how they delayed the breakdown just to insert that scene in to try and create some drama?
I think it often happens in some music videos, doesn't it, to sort of create an element of the story you're trying to tell. But I think what you're trying to say, it has impacted the sort of flow of the song a little bit. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because
I didn't sort of come away from it thinking, oh, they've made the wrong choice there. I think it was the right choice visually, but if, you wouldn't want to do it on the recorded version of a song like that. I'm sure that doesn't happen. That doesn't carry across on the other bands who've used that similar technique. I think it still works really well because it's a visual concept, and something you're watching, and a story you're trying to convey or a message you're trying to convey.
Yeah, I mean, can I ask some questions about the song as well? I know we've analysed the video. So you're playing in drop B there, aren't you, Alan? The guitar tuning. Yeah. How did that song start? Am I right in thinking that your drummer actually came up with the idea? Because when you listen to that opening pattern, it's so upbeat, but it's very aggressive as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So the main riff, if you will, gosh, I must have written that about 12 months ago, but it never had that intro. It was always, we bring it to practice every now and then, and we mess about with it. And I think at one point I might have even sort of put an early version of that verse together as well, but it never hung because I couldn't work out where to go for a chorus from that because it's so fast paced. I couldn't work out where to go next. And we get bored, frankly, because it's a good riff, but it wasn't put together right. And to be honest with you, there were two things that changed that. The first was, I forget whose suggestion it was, but somebody said that should be bass and drums to start with. Obviously, the second piece was Alex playing that rolling, thudding tom riff over the top of it. But the thing that really changed it was I found the root chord in the, if you want to call it a chorus, it's almost like a bridge, really. The two chords that we go into, I did that for the first time, and then I think I might have done sort of some open chugging afterwards. And Alex said, "No, dot the eighths." And I looked at him like, "Do what now? Sorry, like what does that mean?" And he was like, "No, like this." Dun, 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 dun. And anyway, and so the song was made. I fell in love with that bit in particular. Like rhythmically, it's really clever. And then of course we got the vocal, like all the lyrics together and whatnot. And then the same sort of thing happened again with the sort of outro. We wrote that, like musically wrote that before we wrote the breakdown, and I was struggling sort of vocally with it. And a couple of days later, I had just like the music underneath, just in my ears. I was just listening on my headphones, walking the dog, and I found myself singing the two lines almost side by side. And the dog didn't know what hit her because we ran home, so I could put it down so I wouldn't forget. And then, to be honest with you, the breakdown kind of just, I might have had something very similar knocking around to that before, and that was it. I was like, oh, we go here next, and it was born. But that was the first sort of bit of writing we did with Alex, and I think that night in particular was where we knew we were kind of home, if you know what I mean, because he got it, we got it, and it was very, very organic. Nothing was forced. No one had to go away and think about what they would do, well, except for me, because I'm useless. But nobody had to kind of force an agenda on it. It just kind of happened. So that song wasn't written by any one person in any way, shape or form. It was very much a kind of a cumulative effort.
Do you think the drums were the catalyst, though, for that song, to use the phrase, almost like writing itself? As soon as you had that ingredient, that's when it really took on a life of its own.
Something needed to light the blue touch paper, for sure. Something needed to set it alight. And when those two things, when Alex started doing that drum roll to start it off, I was kind of grooving before I'd even started playing my guitar. And then, as I say, the dotted eighths in the chorus really makes what is before that quite a straightforward piece really quite interesting to listen to, even more interested to sing over, trust me. But anyway, it's there's a lot of Alex's character in that song that you can really understand how he plays by the way that song's delivered.
Yeah, do you know, in I guess you could call it the middle eight, where you're singing and then Adam's doing his backing vocals as well. That's like almost the climax in itself. Are you using a lo-fi technique in the studio? Have you just stepped back from the microphone to get that effect? Do you know what I mean? Because there's still a lot of reverb on it. It reminds me of a lot of 90s. Say that again, sorry.
On the high vocals or the low ones?
The one, are you saying "Leave Me Standing"? I think you're almost crooning that, aren't you?
Oh yeah. So the lower vocal.
Yeah.
What we wanted, what you tend to find is, because arguably there are two lead vocal lines in there, one's not backing the other. So what we wanted it to do almost was kind of like wash. So we like that was the brief I gave the guy, the production engineer Max, who, as you guys mentioned in your review video a few weeks ago, absolutely crushed it on our EP. We're so happy with it. Yeah, Max at London Road Studios is a boss. And as you said in your video, if you're in a band and you want an EP doing, he's your man. He is an absolute chief. But yeah, he was very good at picking up what we were trying to put down, so to speak. And so I said to him, you know, it needed to feel as though you kind of fell off something. That kind of like, it's like a wave of like, it's not power. It's not necessarily, it's kind of like it's like quite enveloping as a sound. And so the two vocals were delivered, as you say, like a one step back from the mic, much more less direct than the other ones, with the intention to capture more of the sort of surrounding sound rather than the direct vocal. But yeah, it's quite clearly a different sound. As I say, it's not as direct as the other vocal licks on that track.
Dave, how did you film the rotating shot near the end? Where did you film it, and how did you actually do that?
In which one? Were you mean the rotating where we filmed around the band?
Yeah, almost around the drummer at the end. You know, when you've got the protagonist.
Good question. Because this is actually gonna. This is probably one of the most challenging bits we had. Was probably of the day. It was a location.
Can I give you a bit of pre-story before Dave launches into it? Because my anecdote, which I've told a few times. So we walked into the location for the performance.
What were we told it was? Come on. What were we told it was?
You what? Sorry.
What was it? We were told we were.
Oh, we were told it was a black room.
Black room, right. Spotlights.
Yeah. So in a school, not a problem. Like I went to Performing Arts College. Our black room was black draped. It was completely black and it had a small lighting rig above it. That's what I had in my head.
Yeah.
So we went and got the stuff in the car. The guy came and met us. We went upstairs. And I opened the door to, yes, it was a black room, but it was a black classroom with posters and whiteboards and a teacher's desk and a bright bloody blue carpet. Now, my heart sunk because I was like, I'm not sure we're going to be able to do this. I don't see it. And I thought, no. Be positive. Don't worry. Just wait for Dave. Dave will sort this out. And I turned around and I kid you not, Dave's face was this. And I was like, we're fucked. We are screwed. I don't know what we're going to do. But anyway, so Dave, you how did you shoot it?
Yeah, that was pretty much my kind of thing. I was like, because the problem we've got was if you're moving around in the background, you can see every wall, which means all you could see was bits of coursework and stuff on the walls. I'm like, well, that's not what we wanted. So the next thing we had to do was like, well, how do we make this a black room? So I was like, I think I spent about 15 minutes trying to brainstorm in the back of my head, wandering around, just going, how the hell are we going to fix this? So I used a My Dying Bride trick, which was the old halogen street lamps. And I put them on the floor in front of the walls so that I could walk around them, though. And the idea being is that when your camera was going over there, that bright light is going to black out the exposure on the wall. Yeah. It did mean we had to mess around with contrast. It meant we had to mess around with a lot of things in post effect. And that's why the footage looks grainier, because I had to mess around so much with the contrast to make sure the black walls looked black.
That's
I would have much rather had them looking a lot crisper. But there was the problem is when they look crisp, you could just see all the walls, you could see. So that's why it looks grainer. And there was nothing I could do in post on that one, unfortunately. Luckily, I also had all my black sheet in the car as well. So I was able to drape that over the closest walls that had posters on, and the whiteboards. We were able to cover those with black sheeting. I had the halogen lamps in the car because I had this weird feeling I might need them. Thankfully.
Yeah.
But we luckily shot it. And the idea behind that was well, I think when we were talking about it, because originally I think the idea was there was talk about facing inwards in the circle.
Yeah.
And I was like looking at it going, I don't understand, why would you be facing inwards?
Yeah.
And I had the simple answer, which is, if someone's going to ask me this question when we do the interview, why did I ask them to face inwards? And my answer would be, I ain't got a freaking clue.
Yep.
I don't understand what the purpose was.
Yep.
However, I felt that if we faced outwards, it could almost be like they're protecting him. So there's almost a protection element. Now that's not what the band have said. They haven't got they haven't given a reason, but that to me made sense. He's fallen. It's the afterlife. You've got before the sirens, the angels, the halos. They're a protection type of group. They're supporting him. Whereas if they were facing inwards, I was like, maybe they're being judgmental, and they're judging him. So I was like, let's do it outside, facing the opposite way. And then what we did was we just shot it. We did it. I walked clockwise once for one take, and then I did anti-clockwise a second take, so that I could keep cutting, so that you constantly got different movements. And then we got them to do it one more time with GoPros, which are the ones I use at Club 85, in different, like on the headstocks, or I didn't think I used the headstock footage in the end on the outro. I did through the rest of the set, but I did on the drums. I did the snare, the kick drums, and an overhead. And then we just basically cut that. And then weirdly, we shot the outro first, and then we did the rest of the song afterwards, which was I shot the whole band individually in the middle with the spotlight on them all, and then they got shot individually with a headstock camera and a roving camera. And considering 2 weeks ago when we were talking about videos, I said I really hate how these guys do this waving technique.
You did?
Yeah, I did a waving technique.
No choice.
But in that room, it was the option I had. I was like, I really had to kind of think on my feet. We tried stabilizing vest, that didn't quite work. I just went, do you know what? I need to go handheld with it. I need to be able to move and keep it organic. If I sit still for too long, the camera is going to focus on something in the background, and it's going to pick up, like, there's a desk, because there was some black stage equipment, like bits for stages, and I was stacking them in front of the desk to hide the desk.
We were lying down behind them.
They were hiding behind it to stay out of shot. It was a challenge. That would be my one, and that was the only thing in this whole thing that I didn't know about. And I don't think Al knew about
No.
it. It was the one thing we were like, we've got a room, it's a spotlight, it's a black room, but we have no specs, we've got no pictures of it. And that would be my only do different for next time, is I want to see the location beforehand before we do anything, so we can plan accordingly.
So how many hours
were
were you filming it then? What time did you start? What time did you pack up?
We were done. I mean, we started first shot. What was it? 12:30? Half one. Something like that. Yeah. So we started at 1:30. We were done by 5 on the performance stuff, weren't we? Not the performance, the acting.
Yeah.
We were done by 5 on the acting. We were then got into the black room for about 6:30. We started filming at 7. We were done by 9:30.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So yeah, I mean, it was a couple of hours. So we set a target of being done by 10, I think was our target. So
yeah.
And we could have, I mean, we took time. We went for McDonald's, we went food. We could have easily done it shorter, but we were ahead of time on the video shoot, and there was footage we didn't use. So the original storyboard had him laying his suit out for work. We had him going into an off license. And it was only after we did the first draft of it, we looked at it and went, is it slowing the story down? Is it taking too long to move forward? So let's cut that out. And we chopped out things. And I think just before we did the final edit, I even said, do we really need the off-license scene? Because he's got the bottle at work. The fact he picks up the bottle at work, it doesn't matter where he got it. He's got it. So we can save ourselves a little bit of work there. We can go to another live scene as well. That will work better. So, but it's good to have that footage and then make a decision to remove it later.
Yeah. Did you get anyone who had reservations about imposing him on an image of you, Alan, after that pre-chorus roar after the first on-bridge, as you call it? Was there anyone who was against that idea?
No, that was something Dave suggested. That
was a last-minute decision.
Yeah, it was something we were doing while we were doing the walk-in scenes. And I like that, where someone who is not a member of the band, as like an actor, seems to be you see it quite often where they seem to be like mouthing the words, but like as part of the scene, or like if part of the dialogue that apparently is going on sort of lines up with any of the lyrics. And I like the idea that, you know, the word is low, right? So, you know, the idea that he was sort of articulating that as part of his, you know, his journey throughout the video. Yeah, it really kind of resonated with me.
Okay. Any other questions from Andy? Because Andy's been quite quiet at the back there, so I thought I'd just check.
I haven't got any questions. I've got to say in my little review, I like the headstock shots as well. But I mean, it's a shame there wasn't as much sort of band footage. But as you said, Dave, there's a lot to cover in the storyline. In fact, you know, cut certain elements out. But yeah, the mix of the two, the way it's cut together, the way it's put together was excellent. Yeah, very, very impressed.
Will you be pleased to hear, Andy, that in a couple of weeks, when the single's been out a while, there is an alternate video? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
There is, and that will come out as well. So that will how do I put this apart from to say to rub your balls? What's the word I'm looking for? That'll do it for you. That will cover that off.
So I'll just explain why that is. So one of the ways I shot the video was I shot all the band for the whole song, and then I created a music video of the performance. So I did the performance video. I did a full performance music video straight off, and then I took the story, overlaid the story. So that way, all I had to do is, if there was a point where the story wasn't making sense, I just deleted it, and the music video was already there. So I didn't have to try and then sync up afterwards. But what it means is all I have to do is hide the story one and export it a second time, and Alan gets a second video of a performance video for it.
Got it. Yeah.
Bonus.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got that to drop. A week or so after the single comes out, just before the EP actually.
How will you market that then? Because obviously you're going to release this on Friday, the sort of director's cut. Just wondering what sort of terminology you could use.
It'd be the alternate version.
Just also, that'd cover it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. There'd be, as you say, the official music video is the one that you've just seen. The director's cut, as you put it, which I quite like, because that reminds me of Halloween, because I love those movies when they had the director's cut. And then and the alternate version will predominantly be there for anybody who doesn't really know who we are, because obviously in that lighting, in that setting, it's quite difficult to pick us out as individuals at times, because you know it's quite stylistic. So you get a bit more exposure to the band itself. And obviously it's ideal for, you know, cut-ups for promos and bits and pieces like that. So yeah, that'll come out a few days after the single, because the video itself drops on Friday. And then this one will come out a few days later.
I was speaking to Dave Runham last night, our friends from Lowdown. Obviously, Alan, you're friends with him as well.
Yeah.
And I said, are you going to do an album? And he likes the idea of just doing EPs and doing a video for, I think, every song on there. And there's a lot of mileage in that, isn't there? Are you going to invest in more money in doing at least one more video from this EP? Because there's 4 tracks on it.
Yep.
Yeah,
100%. This is something I've had to learn over the last sort of like 4 years. When we were in Glass Artery, when we were in my previous band, a lot of the sort of hype that we generated was around live shows, it was around CDs, it was around people running around in t-shirts and things like that. And when we started this band in 2018, 2019, that had all changed in the space of a few years. Everything is, you know, about social media and that kind of the sort of content that people can consume. And it has to, and one of the things that I became really aware of is that if you don't have a well, for lack of a better phrase, like sort of video content for a significant amount of your material, then it can almost get lost in the ether. Like I used one of the reaction videos we were talking about, I mentioned Sleep Token, and Sleep Token they released their album on Friday, of which they'd already released 5 or 6 videos, because that's how you get stuff out there. That's how people pick things up. And that content can't just be a bargain basement lyric video, for example. It's it's got to be legit, and the easiest way to do that, particularly in a kind of an up and coming, I hate that phrase, but you know what I mean, like a sort of a band still on the sort of amateur circuit, is to do smaller releases, which is more cost effective, obviously, and then saturate it with the video content that comes with it. So it's an intention of ours for sure. There's a couple of things that we have been working on in the background to enable that to happen a little more smoothly, that I think I might have mentioned previously, but that's definitely an intention. But we wanted to make sure with Low, for example, not specifically Low actually, that we told a story, because we think that gives a lot more purchase. I know Dave hates straight performance videos. He said it a lot, when we did the sort of Silosis reactions, for example, the premise for the video didn't really make any sense. Great song, like really, really clever, really, really like heavy, hard hitting song, but why are you in a wind tunnel that's on fire? That doesn't make any sense to me. And so we put a lot of effort into making sure that the storyline came across and it supported the lyrics. So it was probably a 2.5 month process, Dave, for you and I to plan it all out.
From our initial conversation, yeah.
Like obviously every time I spoke to Dave, I'd go back to the guys and they'd give me other input and things like that. Like the flashbacks over the stairwell, so right at the end, we were talking about one of the drafts that David sent us, and obviously the stair climb is it's probably one of the longer scenes in it, and Al got talking about drummer Alex got talking about what would he be thinking about, and it dawned on that was one of the things that I really struggled with, was that kind of night before flashback, which is why you get that right at the beginning, but then to come back to that for a kind of, it's like his guilt trip, it's like his conscience coming into play, that he's really all of this is coming on top of him all at once, really kind of that really resonated. So but as I say, the other songs, I don't know how many of them we'll do, or what sort of format. I have an idea, but we're certainly going to release more media content for a couple of the other tracks, because realistically our next release won't be until very late this year, if not early next. So the thing with being in a band in this day and age is maximizing the amount of content you can get out there that is watchable. That's our thought anyway.
You think that's a new cycle? So I know that we've got to wrap it up. If you're going to be doing EPs going forward, do you think that will be a new cycle where you try to do 2 each year rather than 1 each year? It
depends on obviously how quickly we can write songs. We're lucky enough at the minute that we're quite busy with shows, so there's a lot of sort of time and effort going into the stagecraft behind that, and getting them all polished up and making sure that we're ready for those. But when we finished this EP, we sat down and we said, what are we going to do for the next one? And then within about 10 minutes, we'd listed 7 or 8 songs that we're like, well, that could go on there and this could go on there. Oh, right, yeah, okay. Well, that's quite a strong EP, isn't it? So I think if there was an appetite, a public appetite for more, if it was a sort of a crying out for more material, then I think we'd prioritize that for sure. But at the minute, one thing I will say about the EP, I mentioned Max at London Road Studios, obviously working with Dave, who has become one of my firm friends. The whole process for me, including the writing, has been not only cathartic, but it's been a pleasure. We've had a really great time writing, recording this record, doing the video, even going through all the edits and coming up with clever little bits and pieces to finish them off and stuff has been a delight. And it meant that I got to speak to you three regularly, which has been lovely. So there you go. I've blown smoke up everybody's backsides now. That's me done. But no, in all seriousness, it's been really good fun. So it absolutely is something I'd like to repeat. How quickly we get round to doing that, I suppose, depends on us, on how busy we are gigs wise, and everybody else's schedule, frankly.
Fair enough. Right, we better wrap this one up. This has been one hell of a talk. I should just want to say a big thank you to Al for obviously explaining a lot more about the new single Low. Thank you to me for filming it because I'm awesome. And of course, Andy and Kirk for giving your feedback on it. Please go check out Before the Sirens and make sure you go and watch them live if you can, if they're within your drivable distance. And please make sure you click subscribe and click the bell icon on the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.